Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for coming out. So, see if I can get my slides moving here. Okay, so yeah, I'm John Gray. I have been in the IT business for actually more than 25 years, probably close to 30 now. Started out, computer science degree back in England, doing software development, that sort of thing, back in the 80s, building software, working for system integration kind of companies around aerospace and then manufacturing. And then decided to come out to California in the late 80s, get into the software and around Silicon Valley, got working with healthcare companies up in Sacramento. And then, decided a few years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, seriously, once we started Infinity about 15 years ago, I was co-founder, of Infinity and the CTO. We got going with doing a lot of business for California state government, for some private sector companies. We started some MSP type work, doing a lot of virtualization there, probably 6, 7 years ago. And then it became absolutely clear that cloud was where everything was going. So we really changed our focus, started to use the cloud a lot, to start to use it for test environments for some of our clients. That went very, very well. So then we completely focused on the cloud, right? Both AWS and Microsoft, and things really took off for us. So what we did a lot of was took some of our software engineering approach and applied it to the cloud. So automation was what we started with. So from the very beginning, we were kind of very much into automation and DevOps and things like that, which I'll talk about more here. So that's sort of our transition, and we've brought a lot of our clients along with us, and then we've got a lot of big government departments, quite frankly, in California that are just starting to enter the cloud. So we've got customers who, really kind of like you guys, are either starting somewhere along or have done quite a bit. So I'm going to talk about our experience and stepping back. I mean, this day is about cloud strategy, right? And to develop a strategy, you should have information, right? Talk to people who have done it, right? Who've got the experiences, both good and bad, who share those experiences with you. So hopefully you can learn from others, figure out things that are going to work for you based on the information you get. So what I'm going to do here is share kind of what we have done around the cloud, some use cases, particularly focusing on migration. And then, our vision as a company when we started this a few years ago was, okay, where is the industry? Where are our clients in this, dealing with IT and the cloud? And realizing, okay, there's going to be a lot of migrations, right, into the cloud. But what are we as a company going to do to position ourselves well to help our clients once they all get to the cloud or all get substantially into the cloud? One focus area there was artificial intelligence, because machine learning, right, uses data, needs tons of compute power, and where is that really cheap and available? In the cloud. So, looking at this about 5 years ago, I realized that is an area that we should also be focusing on, because back then it wasn't that prevalent, but you could just see, that more and more data was coming into the cloud, and the compute power was getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper in the cloud. So that meant that AI was finally going to be viable, and it's something that I studied in school in the early 80s. Artificial intelligence, awesome, it's be great. And then, I'm in the business 10 years, haven't seen any AI really being used other than in universities, 20 years, and then you just start to see it really then became viable to a big scale. So, so like I said, my company was Infinity. We're now part of InterVision. We're going through a rebranding, so that's kind of difficult for me to remember who I work for and who I am, but we're InterVision. So, and InterVision's been around 25 years, right? We, within Infinity, brought with us about 60 engineers certified in Microsoft Azure and AWS. So we are a sort of a trusted advisor to our clients. So even though Microsoft's here today and sponsoring us, and we love Microsoft, we are not aligned with any one cloud service company, because that would really stop us from being able to advise you as to what is best for you, right? So close your ears over there. But, you know, we've done tons of Microsoft work from, for decades, and they are great to partner with. I'm very happy to see, they're doing so well here in this part of the country. So, we're obviously very supportive. But quite frankly, we're a consulting business, an IT services business. We have to go where our clients are going, right? So we have to provide that sort of support and hopefully thought leadership and see where the market's going. So, that's what we do. So, InterVision has about 3,000 clients across multiple industries. Why is that sort of significant or helpful to you? It's like, well, we see lots of things that other people are doing. We're on projects, right? We're working with them. We, quite frankly, get to learn from what worked over here well, what didn't work quite so well, and we can then relay that information back to other clients. So being a good sort of professional services organization consultant, we take something we've done and automate it and learn over here and bring it over and help another client over here. So that's at times, it feels kind of like you're cheating, right? You come in, can you do it? Oh, you just did the same thing over here. Absolutely. And
how do you achieve that? That cross knowledge across companies and industries. I mean, I'm curious as to how you actually enable that cross.
Yes. So my background, or it's a great question. My background is architecture, software architecture, right? Enterprise architecture. And to do that well, do that effectively, you've got to understand the business first and foremost. What is the business trying to do? What are their objectives? Who are the business's clients? What do they want, right? And then you have to look at how can technology enable that. Right? Not constrain it, which is often the case. You've got systems that are holding it back. So you really look for patterns, right, in the sort of business domain, the problem, and then solutions, right, certain types of systems, be they database systems or artificial intelligence, reference architectures, essentially. So you're looking for patterns in a business, and you're then pulling out the closest thing you have, or maybe it's a complete fit. Maybe it's a COTS or a software service that just completely fits with you, right, for that company. So it's kind of experience over time of looking for certain patterns in the business and problem and certain patterns in software. If you've got a system or a area in your business where it's going to be changing a lot, right? Say you're analyzing or auditing or chasing fraud, you need a system that is in some way kind of rule driven, that can be very dynamic because it needs to change a lot, right? So there's a certain type of infrastructure, it needs to scale up and scale down. There's a certain type of software that's well suited to that. That's very different to if you need an accounting system that's really stable, that applies very rigid rules, the same that general accounting principles are not changing rapidly. That sort of system, it should be very stable, very well tested, right? So, and the infrastructure around it kind of the same. And so you can, if you step back a little bit, you can see a lot of patterns across business that are the same. And then you see the things that are unique, right? Okay. So that's what I love about my line of work is I've gotten to learn tons about lots and lots of different types of businesses. I'm not very good at sticking with things, so I jump around a lot and I apply what I've seen elsewhere, and I ask a lot of questions to understand how a business works, right? Because if you understand how a business functions, what their contracts are, how they make money, then you can see how to help with technology.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So thanks for asking the question. So that's why, to me, it's great that we've got lots of clients, and then across lots of areas. But we look at verticals. We look at like manufacturing companies and see what's similar about them and how technology is helping them, right? So it's our job. Jonathan goes to a ton of conferences. I go to technology conferences. All our team stay up on certifications so that we can figure out what makes the most sense for particular types of businesses. And if we can find all our clients, in California, we're looking at banking and financial companies and things that we can help them with. We can take ideas and solutions to them. So as I said, we've got lots of certifications. We actually pay our staff to get certifications. They're bonused on that. So we've got lots of people who are learning all the time, staying up with all the new technologies. That's really important. And it's very motivating to them. We've got, as a company, we've got lots of competencies and things like that. So, we're constantly learning, right, in our business, right, because we have to, right, to keep up with the relentless change that is coming out of Microsoft, AWS. These companies are continuing to push out new features and services and things that are helpful. So, the future, obviously, you see all these statistics. This is one that was, one of the publications came out with 90% of the companies are in the cloud in some form. I think everybody in here, raise their hand. Everybody's got something in the cloud, right? 60% of the workloads right now are in the cloud, so more than half. And prediction is that the cloud will be the data center for 94% of workloads in a couple of years. So, it's going there. Therefore, you should have a strategy, right, for how to deal with it, because you're going to go there whether you plan and strategize or not. And it's better that you do. This pretty map here. What is the cloud? Big part of the cloud, obviously, is data centers all over the world, right? So it's servers and network here in somebody else's data center across the world. It's a lot more than that, because increasingly there are a lot of more sophisticated platform as a service kind of services in the cloud, a lot of things that can help you. But at fundamental level, it's lots of data centers. It's other people have to take care of the headaches of replacing the hardware every 2 years, dealing with all the certifications to make sure they've done all the background checks on all the people that are entering those buildings and all of that. So. So what do? We've got a pretty broad array of things that we do for our clients around the cloud, right? So we like to try to start with architecture if we can with a client. If we come into a situation where they've already got things in the cloud and need help fixing it, then architecture is not big at that point. We get there later. We do a lot of migration. We do DevOps, which is really automation of deploying software into production environments, particularly for clients that have got custom systems. You build pipelines to push the applications out automatically. Do a lot of that kind of work. Talking about big data and machine learning, we've done a good amount of that. Security is huge, never-ending loop of figuring out the latest way things are being attacked and what's the latest way of preventing them. So, that is something that we're always focused on. One of the things I really like about us merging in with InterVision is InterVision has very strong security practice, and we also did. So now we've integrated it. So this is an area that we have great strength in. SysOps is really sort of support, right, for environments, troubleshooting, monitoring. We use a lot of tools, a lot of automation. That's an area that's pretty big for us. And disaster recovery is something that the cloud's very good at. A lot of our clients didn't have any DR before, so one of the first things we've done with quite a lot of clients is get them disaster recovery, either backup, restore, or all the way up to hot sites. So that's because the cloud just is a much more cost-effective and viable way of doing that. Architecture then, both Microsoft and Amazon have cloud adoption frameworks that have these, core principles: security, reliability, efficiency, cost optimization, operational excellence. So as we architect and we work in the cloud, we're looking obviously at security, because the cloud absolutely can be more secure than on-prem. It also gives you the chance to start afresh, right? You can create new environments, you can automate the creation so that you know that what you have is is very repeatable and solid. But it is different, right? So if you're moving significant workloads and data into the cloud, you need to understand how you're securing it, what your responsibilities are versus a partner like us versus the actual CSP at Microsoft. Reliability, with the way that the cloud works and you build out environments in the cloud, it's inherently sort of, there's more availability, high availability, fault tolerance if you do it the right way. So, reliability becomes easier to achieve. Efficiency, depending on how you take advantage of the cloud, if you can refactor your applications or use a newer approach, you can gain a lot of efficiency. And I'll talk more about that. Cost optimization kind of comes with that efficiency. That's, sometimes that's the reason to move to the cloud, but certainly if you, you certainly should be able to make things more cost effective. If you don't plan, you don't strategize, you can actually spend more money in the cloud. So, it's why you want to plan, why you want to understand how to go about it. Operational excellence, how you're going to operate your systems because things are changing. And you're, depending on whether you're going to have your own IT staff support it or you're going to use a vendor, you need to think about all of those things, right? So that you do not stumble. If you do a lot of good things to get the system out there, and then you don't have the procedures for how you're going to support it, you can stumble. So a lot of things to think through. What we kind of break it down into a number of areas when we come into architecture for a client. We look at their as is, their current situation, and we look at certain areas within that as is, like the network, WANs, single sign-on. We do network scans, that type of thing to really learn what they have, so that we can truly identify what is it we're looking at, and then we split up the target architecture, the 2B, into different areas, focusing in on how we're architecting those. We come in with predefined ways of doing that quite often, so that we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from what we know to be a good way of building out an infrastructure, but then we tailor it to the client. Networking being an area that really quite often is different per client. And we use a lot of automation, right? So we've built things along the way that allow us to automate pieces of what we roll out in the cloud. We call that our automation framework. We're always adding to it. It allows us to do things more quickly with less errors, and then focus on the things that are unique for a client. So by spending time on the architecture, you're generally going to get a better outcome, right? Because you don't jump into the cloud, which we see a lot. People jump in, they get their credit card out, they create an account, you throw stuff in there, and then things start to go awry. And you can fix it, but it's better if you think about those things up front. So this is a picture of networking, basically, in Microsoft with Palo Alto. So on the left-hand side there, we're showing web servers, application servers, database, so like a SQL database, and then moving over to the right, those on the left, those will be in a private subnet, so they're kind of protected from the world. You can't get in easily. But then you've got Palo Alto devices that are firewall that are screening everything that's coming and going. So this kind of shows how Palo Alto in this circumstance is a software appliance. This is no longer a hardware device, right? Probably some of you are familiar with this and done it. Then we've got down at the bottom there to the bottom left the Azure Express route, which is high-speed connectivity back to your on-prem. So if you've still got a good amount of your workload, or you need to get into the cloud in a very fast way, then use Express route as high-speed connectivity in and out of the cloud. Again, with a Palo Alto device, so you're protecting again, the flow internally. And then on the right, going out through a load balancer to the internet, right? So this can get quite complex. So we built automation scripts. We're working with Palo Alto to build out automation scripts to make this easier for our team, so that when we get to a new client, rather than having to spend much time configuring, we can just run scripts to get us to that point. So this is something that we are sort of constantly focusing on, because the way that these services are done changes every year, right? So we have to stay with that, right? But it's an area where obviously if you don't know what you're doing, you can create issues and security issues. So that, this particularly is an area where I would say, you want to pull in expertise if you don't have it. So yeah, making the point here that, networking, the connectivity is important for a whole bunch of reasons. Security, performance, operations, and we as a company have really deep expertise here, both on-prem, Microsoft, Amazon, so we are very skilled at those different areas. So the reason to come to the cloud for, quite a lot of people is storage. This can be sort of an initial use case for folks. If you've got a ton of data on, in certain devices on-prem and you want to start moving some of that into a cheaper location, the cloud can do that for you, right? So, or, there are many other reasons. As you migrate into the cloud, if you've got an enormous amount of data, you can use Azure's data box to dump all that data on to ship it to Microsoft's data center essentially and load it up, so you don't have to do all the migration over the internet, right? Which could potentially, if you've got enormous amounts of data, could take days. So, lots of different ways to transfer data. 3 different types of storage fundamentally: file, block, and objects. So depending on what it is you're storing, there's different ways of doing it. And so the reason I put this up here is you really kind of need to look at what you have and then look at what the solutions are, and we would be able to guide you through this and see what fits. So there's lots of different ways of doing things. Many times there's several ways of doing things well, but it just sort of depends where you're going as an organization, what you're trying to achieve, how quickly you need to move. So, so pre-migration, migration readiness planning, migration. We just go through these steps. You can see that in the darker blue boxes on the second line there. We'll inventory everything you have. We use tools to do that if we can. We can run automation tools to discover your servers, your networking gear, your applications, identify the dependencies between the different parts of an application, the web server, the database server. That helps us. The business case, that's really what we're talking about here, right? The strategy, we'll work with you on that. The actual migration planning and the migration itself, we've got tools that can do that depending on the type of migration. We've got our own tool set. Like I said, we use tools from Microsoft along the way here. They've got great tools for helping with discovery and helping with the different parts of the migration. So those are, if you can automate and use tools rather than doing it manually, it's generally better. So we've got experience. These tools are changing all the time. There are new, better tools coming along. Microsoft's buying companies, integrating them. This whole area continues to shift and improve. So it's like, if you ask me the question, what's the best thing we should use? I'll give you one answer today and another answer in 6 months, right? Because we've got our guys trying them in the lab, figuring out which is the best. We work with Microsoft. We've got, really sort of tight relationships with companies like Microsoft, so we get sort of advanced notice on what's coming out and can get, really skilled with them. Okay, so I kind of change things a little bit here. We put out a white paper and did a webinar a few months back. Right, Steve? What's this? How much time has gone by? I think you're right. It was really hot in my office when I did this webinar. I think our air conditioning was on the grid. I think you're right. So there's a white paper out. There's a webinar where you can listen to me drone on the webinar about this. What we were trying to do was distill for this type of audience, right? Some things, right? Initially, we took the approach of, I think we called it the 7 deadly sins, things you should not do. And then marketing got a hold of us and said, no, you don't want to be negative, you need to be positive, right? So then we had to kind of rejigger it and change it into the 7 golden rules. It's really kind of the same areas, right? Here's things that you need to think about and do right. So And then, you know, so first of all, it's like scare you a bit, right? 20% of all cloud migration projects are in big trouble. Some of the reasons, right? So one of the approaches to migration, which can work, but is lift and shift, which is take servers as they are, move them block by block into the cloud. But you know, what we've seen to some degree is people are taking like wheelbarrow loads of applications, dumping them into the cloud with their existing problems, and now you've got different networking, and now your people don't know how to support in the new environment. So you got your existing problems plus new ones, right? And it's the apps are not optimized for the cloud, so you're not saving money. Now people are yelling at you. I thought it was going to be better. I thought it was going to be cheaper. So that's some of what's happening. There are lots of companies out there offering their applications as software as a service, right? So if you're running, I don't know, you know, SAP or something, you now run, that's probably a bad example, but you can run it in their cloud version. Every vendor is moving there, right? So now you could put all of your applications in their software as a service, which may work pretty well for you, but now you want to integrate the data to get, you know, into some business intelligence reports that you want to build. Oh, that's really difficult because now you've got data out in 10 different places. None of them let you into the database underneath their, you know, their software as a service. So you've now got a big time data integration problem. So if you're a company of any size that has a lot of different types of systems and you need to integrate data, software as a service is kind of a dangerous thing. I don't know if if you guys are familiar with the kind of the topic of siloed applications, silos. That's something we used to talk a lot about in big enterprises, right? We worked with a company and they had, you know, they were an auditing agency, so they had an auditing system, they had a collection system, they had an operational system. A lot of the same things in those systems. Every one of them was built as its own application. So they had to do all these peer-to-peer interfaces and try to exchange them. So that's silos, right? Spend a lot of time trying to break those down in like single integrated systems. And then service-oriented architecture came along, and that things got a bit better. Now the cloud's come along, and you can do this software as a service approach. It, in some ways, sort of hastens that old bad habit of silos, right? So put everything in all these different software as a service solutions. And you've solved some problems, but you've made your own data integration. And for data-driven companies, I mean, everybody's looking at data being the future, right? Machine learning, artificial intelligence. You need to integrate the data. So that's one of the areas where I think people are running, companies are running into problems. And security, right? If you're moving stuff all over the place, quickly, how do you know it's secure? You don't. I mean, you don't know where your data is at the time, right? So if you don't planning that out, security is an issue. How am I doing on time, Steve? So here are the golden rules, right? Have a strategy, choose the right kind of migration, segment your applications, ensure security, be strategic, all right? Make sure you got backup and disaster recovery thought about, and understand your dependencies early on. And I'll go into each of these now. So, yeah, is now a good time to go to the cloud? Absolutely, right? And you guys are all there in some form, right? Costs have leveled off, costs are coming down, right? Changing to serverless computing, and the compute price is coming down all the time. We're seeing with some of our big clients that their costs are kind of flat because we keep applying new technology and they're doing more and more. Right? So we're able to sort of keep the costs at the constant for them, but they're doing a lot more. So, and they're happy with that. A few cases we see we're able to get costs going down. In all honesty, most places are doing more. We've got more data. Let's do machine learning. Let's do these things that they haven't been able to do before. Right? So you can control the costs. Security is, like I said, it's better in the cloud. You do it right. The architect. So, yeah, convenience, availability is awesome. I mean, for a company like ours, when we were about 80 people, we could suddenly compete with the enormous companies because we could build data center overnight, in the cloud. So that made us competitive with bigger organizations. Really fascinating.
That's a question or security comment there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, I'm in the banking space, and I'm just trying to think about the transition of, we have things in the cloud and stuff on premise as well. And as we do annual internal and external pen testing, how does that work when you move to the cloud? Are you just relying on like vendor management and SOC reports to validate that your information is truly secure? Or can you as a institution have teams come in and run assessments against that cloud provider?
Yes and yes. You typically, I'll turn to Microsoft here a little. You need to let them know if you're going to run some of those tests, and then that can be done, right? There's a lot you don't need to worry about anymore because they're taking care of it, right?
So that scares the shit out of me.
Banking, you guys are really slow at cloud adoption.
If you saw my stack, you would be shocked how progressive we are.
Okay. Maybe it's out on the West Coast.
Maybe
banking is just, they're like really, really slow to adopt for those sort of reasons.
You'll get really good at reading T's and C's.
Yeah,
And your legal team will either love or hate you, probably hate first.
Oh, it's hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's,
Do you want
those are the challenges that we saw going into it, was understanding what the contracts really meant,
to?
and then getting your legal team. We don't have vendor management. It all lands on the infrastructure side of the house. So our procurement team and our infrastructure leads got really good at sitting down for days and chumming T's and C's.
So, before that, it's really shared responsibility, right? You've got to understand who's responsible for what, right? The cloud service provider is responsible for certain layers, right? And they have all the, certifications and documentation to go with that. If you've got a vendor like us involved, we're going to be responsible for certain things, right? And then your team ultimately, because typically I'm not going to want our team having access to the production environment at all, right? That way I know that we're not responsible for something that goes wrong, right? So, and we can control it that way. But you need to know what your team has access to and what they are responsible for. And I'll typically spend a lot of time talking to clients early on projects about this. We did a machine learning application for a big college community system in California, and initially they were going to give us all kinds of data. No, we don't want all that.
Right.
I worked with Harsha and his team. What's the absolute minimum of what we need? No PII, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do not want it on any workstations, and it's going to remain in this one location. Right. So we wrote up a whole data management plan, right, that we had the client sign off on. In another situation, we forced the client to do data obfuscation on their database before they put it. They had a test system for an ERP. Started talking about, well, what test data? Oh, we're just going to copy data from production. Does that have SSNs and whatever? Account numbers. Mm-hmm. And this is what they previously did, right, for their test system. As you move to the cloud, you're working with us. We've got this sort of shared responsibility. I can't, let you do that. So we help them get some software that would, that would obfuscate, scramble their data and put it in the system. So it's a big deal, right? Because whether it was, our issue or not on a project, we're going to come out looking bad if you guys have a problem. So I don't know if you want to sort of say a little around how you would help an organization like a bank with testing.
Well, from a testing perspective, internally, there's nobody that does more testing than we do. We basically have a red team and a blue team sit up in Redmond and do a weekly test where basically they're going against each other. People don't have the resources to do that as individual companies on a daily basis. We're the second most attempted hacked company in the world behind the US DoD. So we've got a lot of experience when it comes to security. But that being said, it is a shared responsibility, because just because we can protect up to a certain layer, once you guys open your systems up to the world, it goes out of our hands. So we do allow you to do your own pen testing. You do have to basically fill out a form that says these are the dates we're going to be doing it, so that we turn off, certain things to protect your environment, DDoS, those types of things. And then, once that's in place, you can go up to certain levels of testing. Obviously, you're not going to be able to test base infrastructure and things like that, but that's why we do it, and we provide all the documentations and the audit reports that are out there. So I worked at a bank. I've had lots and lots of banking customers in my time, and I understand the concerns. A lot of times, actually, the biggest thing that we get is vendor due diligence. Those are the biggest issues that we see in banking, because we have to bring in third parties to do a lot of the work. So we have to verify and certify all of those individuals. Again, we do provide that to banks, but I would just say that if the U.S. government is comfortable enough putting their stuff in Azure, everybody should be, because again, they're getting hacked even, or attempted hack more often than we are.
Yeah, for me, it's not a matter of level of comfort. Yeah, I appreciate the security and concerns. I think about it's like a red team. So we'll have a pen test come in and go, I want you to capture privileged access, figure out domain administration. That's really what they're going after. So like in that scenario, now I put a domain controller out in the cloud. I assume I can run that same scenario, just given that you guys get the heads up that takes place.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Now it's your software basically, right? At that point, we're not looking down at that level. But yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Great question. So having a clearly defined strategy, right, is important. So part of a strategy, right, is considering why you're going to do something. Why you're changing. Right? It's to gain agility and flexibility, which the cloud certainly will give you if you do it right. Accessibility, reduce cost. Are you going through a complete transformation as an organization? Common reasons to move to the cloud. Shutting down a data center, your lease is up. These can really drive organizations to move quickly. Hardware aging out. Obviously, if you're going to make a big purchase, you need to think about, or it makes sense to think about migrating to the cloud at that point. If you've had a sudden growth in your company and you need more horsepower to support that, the cloud is a quick way to do that. So the point here is, if you to do this, to migrate a company into the cloud is not easy. You got to get a lot of people on board, right? You got to go around with kind of a roadshow within the company, get everybody understanding what it is you're doing, communicate the change, get everybody ideally sharing ownership, right, of what you're doing. So to do that, you've got to figure out, okay, what's the CFO going to care about? Well, we're finally, we're going to save money, or we're going to get more. What's the COO going to care about? Well, things are not going to break as much. How are you going to communicate this strategy, this message, across your company to really, get people to share it, so it's not just yours. That's how I always look at things, right? If I've been in the CTO role, we're doing this to support the business. We're not just doing this because it's fun, right? So you got to draw everybody into that strategy and that plan. Have them lean in and own it with you. So, the other reasons you may be going there is, you've got competitors who are now beating you in some way because they have made the change to the cloud and they're now quicker at releasing things, or, you're getting pressure to both improve security and reduce cost. You've gone through a merger and acquisition, or you've been given a cloud-first directive, and there's lots of different things coming along that are causing people to change. You want to get new applications. You want to do artificial intelligence. If you're an organization that has big fluctuations in workloads, right, huge peaks and valleys, they previously had to buy hardware to support the highs of the high, right, and then the rest of the year is sitting there and just kind of idling along. The cloud's a way better place to be because you can provision and have running that smaller footprint. You know, generally that's cheaper for what it is anyway, but then scale it up, and if you've done it correctly, it auto scales up as the load goes up, and then it comes back down. So, you know, if you've got that type of burst, peaky workload, the cloud is a great place to be. And if you don't have IT, disaster recovery, cloud can help you fix that much more quickly than doing it on-prem. So yeah, again, really being clear on why you're going to the cloud. I talked about this a bit earlier with process. You know, we've got a pretty clearly defined process. Really want to sort of work through these different areas of pre-migration, readiness and planning, doing deep discovery, and using tools to validate. The more you can use tools, the quicker this will go. But you need people who are skillful with those tools. So, yeah, there's no one right way to do this, right? It's, you know, there's many sort of different ways to go about it, but having a plan, getting it communicated, you know, tying it to your strategy, tying it to your business, that sort of thing. The more you can plan, there will always be things that come up, right, that are unexpected. The more you plan, right, sort of the more capability you then have to deal with those things that will come up, right? Because you've got a lot of it will go smoothly, some bumps will come up, some things will happen. You will then be able to sort of react to them. We take an approach where we will migrate development environments, then test environments, then staging environments, and then finally production, right? So, you know, it's a typical sort of best practice way of doing this. So by the time we get to a production environment for an application or system, we've got it fully automated, and it should be very dull because it should all go very well. Right? When we do the development environment, quite often we discover quite a number of things that weren't known. That's the time to do it, right? Before you're on the hook to get the system up by a certain date. So do the right kind of migration for your organization. This is an interesting little diagram that Jonathan over here sent to me a while ago. Where are we heading? The Internet of Everything, IT as a service. Yeah, so this is kind of what's happening. If you look there, you know, 2008, we were heavy into virtualization. That's what we were doing as a company. We were sweeping through organizations that we took on to manage their servers. They had a lot of physical servers. First thing we do is virtualize, right? Get everything sort of clean and, you know, virtual. And then we started to get into automation and cloud, hybrid cloud. Ultimately, you know, IT as a service, everything as a service, right? That's the slogan now. But why is this shift happening? People and organizations want to get better outcomes from technology, right? Technology is now so integrated with business, right? It's not a separate thing. It used to be called data processing way back when, right? You had a data processing department. It was somewhere sort of off to the side. It's now everywhere, right? We've all got these smart devices that Steve was trying to operate, Alexa or Siri. Somebody, his wife or whatever. He's got like too many women in his life. But I mean, when you think about the power you have here, you know, this is more than we had on the, you know, the big systems that I started out, you know, developing software on in the 80s. So we've got higher expectations, right? You know, our kids wouldn't know how to function, right, without computers and everything that we have. So, but truly, again, it's the concept that we were talking about earlier of technology enabling a business, right? And that's how I look at what we do, is to continue to stay ahead of the curve from a technology standpoint to figure out how to make it an enabler for our clients. Here's another kind of interesting chart, right? So on the left-hand side, you got the same stack of things across in 4 different ways of sort of deploying them, right? So application has data underneath it. You got a runtime environment. Quite often you got middleware, operating system. Under that, you got virtualization, the server, storage, and finally down to the networking. Yeah, so the typical stack. If you're doing infrastructure as a service, this kind of comes into what you were talking about here. A lot of that now is managed by the cloud service provider. So the boxes in darker blue no longer are yours, or they're being managed by the cloud service provider. Right? So that's where you start moving into Azure, and you're putting servers into Azure, but you're still getting in and controlling those, administrating those servers. You're doing a lot of the same things you were doing before. You just don't have the hardware and the operating system. Platform as a service. Now you're starting to get into managed services, right? Where you're not having to get into the servers. That's hidden from you. Microsoft's taking care of that, right? So now your DBAs are not dealing with installing and patching the latest version of the database management system. They're dealing with perhaps doing backups or doing DRs and types of things, higher skilled things. They don't have to do a lot of the mundane things they used to have to do. So this is where the cloud is not just a whole bunch of data centers across the world. It's a bunch of more sophisticated services that are continue to come out that make it easier for companies like us and companies like you to focus on what is unique about you, how to leverage these more sophisticated services to your advantage. And then I talked about software as a service, and I sort of was knocking it, right? But in some ways, if it fits for you as an organization, all you have to do is move your data up there, and you don't have to worry about any of the rest of it. So in certain situations, it's a great solution. So, so what's happening here, right? Commoditization, standardization, reduction in costs, more agility. You're paying for things as you use them, right? Utility-based, so that the OpEx versus CapEx. You don't have to go out and buy a whole bunch of servers and everything ahead of time. You're paying for what you use. So determining the right migration strategy is important. So choked up here. I like this slide. So this came originally from a Gartner white paper a number of years ago called the 6 R's, relating to if you've got an application and you're looking at cloud migration, there are 6 different things you can do. You can retain it on site. I don't have that up here. You can retire it because you just don't need it anymore. Or you can rehost, replatform, repurchase, or refactor. The one that's been added in here recently is relocate, because both Microsoft and Amazon now provide VMware on their bare metal, right? Running, so you can run VMware in all those data centers that you saw on that slide earlier, right? So if you as an organization are very VMware centric, you've got lots of people trained and comfortable with that, and you don't really want to migrate to Azure at this point, you can take advantage of that worldwide data centers that Microsoft has by moving your VMware around there. So that's relocate. Rehost is if you've got servers where you want to move them in, basically they're going to get converted from VMware into Azure servers block by block. So it's an automated software that converts that. That can work well. It's quicker, less risk, because you're not changing anything. You're taking your server as it is. If you had things that weren't functioning very well in that server, they're going to come over and not function very well, right? So technical debt being the trendy word. So if you want to clean up a little as you go, upgrade the operating system, that's what replatform is, right? But you've still got server-based systems when you get there. If you really want to take advantage of the cloud, you need to refactor, change your applications entirely, start to containerize or start to take advantage of serverless computing. So you use microservices. You're starting to pull apart and rebuild applications and do them in a different way. Those then allow you to really take advantage of the cloud, the auto scaling, the shutting things down, elasticity, all of that type of stuff, right? Which allows much more agility to go up and go down with your workloads, reduces costs, can adapt, to new circumstances. But it takes, what this diagram is trying to show is that will cost you more money. It will take more time than the rehosting approach. So it depends what's driving you here. If you've got to get out of your data center in 3 months, the rehosting approach is, much more of a viable candidate. If If you're really planning for something 18 months from now, think about refactoring. So I think I go through these in more detail. So I've kind of covered these points, so I'll just flip through these slides. Yeah, I mean, re-hosting can work well if you've got an application that's kind of, you think you're going to stop using it in a year or two. It's got no roadmap, you're not going to update it. Rehost it. Obviously, don't spend a bunch of time refactoring it and then stop using it a year from now. That doesn't make any sense. Replatforming is actually what we do a lot with our clients. We come in and say, oh, we want to get there really quickly. Let's rehost this. And you've got SQL 2008, Windows 2003. We need to upgrade those. So that's some work that needs to be done ahead of time, right? Test it, make sure it works, then migrate it. Or we can migrate it as part of we can upgrade as part of the migration. You could do a mix and match, but you've still got to take the time to test, because sometimes, as you probably all know, when you upgrade, things don't miraculously continue to work. There are problems that you find. So we've talked about software as a service. Refactoring. The point I'm making up here at the top is, or in the bullet point there, you can start to use more of these platform as a service offerings, right? You can use the database in a way that it's managed by Microsoft. You don't have to maintain the service. So this starts to sort of really change the way that you support systems and work with them. Hit all those points. Okay, so this is, a pretty straightforward concept, really. Before you move to the cloud, look at all your applications, your workloads, and segment them into different tiers. So tier 1, mission critical; tier 2, sensitive and important; tier 3, lower importance. We've worked with quite a lot of organizations, and initially, every one of them is mission critical. We can't have anything go down, everything needs to stay up. But then you start to dig into it, and we could live without that audit system, for a couple of days. There are systems that we need to have to stay online. The reason this is important is just, for some of the obvious reasons. Which ones you want to migrate to the cloud first. If your team's doing a lot of the work yourself, it's better that you do it with some of the lower importance things first, right? So you get your sort of processes and things down before you get to your mission critical. So if you're looking at disaster recovery, obviously mission critical needs to be recoverable very quickly. Lower importance, not so much. So understanding those tiers can be important for a number of different reasons as you migrate. Security, we've talked about this quite a bit. Lots of different types of threats. As you move into the cloud, there's a lot of things you can protect from. There are then some really different types of concerns, right? Because if you've got a lot of automation is great, but it can also go badly wrong, right? If people get in and get control of it, you've got control of everything. So the threats are different, and you need to understand those, and you start to learn that as you sort of incrementally migrate, right? And if you pull in partners like us, obviously we will kind of make sure that you're not doing something that you shouldn't be. Different areas of cyber health, prevention obviously is what we want to do, and we're building lots of layers. And you saw an architecture up there earlier that showed segmentation, private subnets, all of that. So we will do that. The great thing is, once you get that working right, if you've got it all automated, you can now stamp out environments that have that consistent security in them, right? Detection, there's lots and lots of different software that's out and coming out around detecting security issues. We've got, there's machine learning, artificial intelligence being applied to that now, to have to for a long time to identify patterns of behavior behavior that look bad to automatically sort of protect you at the different levels. Restoration, obviously. Yeah, it's really not a matter of are you going to be hit? It's more a matter of when are you going to be hit by some kind of security issue, right? So having backups and having automatic, practiced, ability to restore is important. I mean, that's important on-prem, it's important in the cloud. With automation, you can really, make it a lot easier. And education, things like these sessions and then sessions internally. We, as a company, you do a number of security assessments, NIST-based assessments. We do work with clients who have got healthcare data, so HIPAA is something that we're skilled, we've got people skilled in. So we've got people working with some of the biggest organizations in the world doing assessments, governance, compliance, and implementing security for them across multi-cloud, hybrids. There is so much going on and coming out all the time in the area of security. It can be mind-blowing, complex. We can help organizations figure out what do you need to protect given the regulations in your industry. How can you protect? What are your exposure points? How do you need to train your staff? We can really help a lot in that area. This is a philosophy that came out a few years ago that I personally think is pretty good. Security by design. Right? So again, it's defining a strategy up front, identifying the stakeholders, the workloads are going to move, and then as you sort of look at that, analyzing, rationalizing those security requirements to figure out, okay, I've been given by my CISO this big thing, and we've got to be compliant with all these. What's that really mean as far as the applications we have, the data we have, right? So you define what you have to do. Where is all my data? It's on-prem, it's in the cloud, it's in SaaS. How is it protected? How do we need to protect it? This can be a real headache. Document that security architecture so you've got something that you can show people. Okay, we are doing our due diligence. And then build that into your architecture as you deploy it into the cloud or on-prem or a combination. Automation is really helpful, right? You're not relying on humans anymore. There are companies out there like F5 who are changing their business, right? They were a load balancing company. They are now much more security focused, and they are focused on providing security in a way that is built into the application, injected into the application. So what that means is you don't have to separately configure firewalls and things like that to protect an application. The application itself is carrying the security with it. I think that's where the industry is moving. Jonathan and I were just meeting with some of the top people from F5 in Seattle last week. It's pretty interesting what they're doing, because when you think about it, it'll be much better if the applications themselves could fully protect themselves, right? So there's, web application firewalls and things like that, but those are outside of the, right? So these are areas that we as a company are looking at all the time, right? To figure out what would be the best. So there's fundamental changes that are happening all the time in the area of security. Continuous monitoring, testing, you were talking about that. And then, depending on what business you are, what certifications do you need? What should you be auditing? I'm on the board of a company in Sacramento that is in the wastewater water management business, big green boxes that pump stuff around. Homeland Security now looks at that, right? Because next terrorism act could be to interrupt flow of water across the metropolitan areas, right? So my advice to them as a board member was you should get ahead of that, and they are doing this security assessment before they come and ask you, right? So, which they've done, and you follow up on the corrective actions that were there, so that by the time the government comes and asks, you can just, here you go, we're already ahead of it. Now they can tell their clients, look, we're fully compliant with NIST 800-53 or whatever, and it's actually now something that gives them an advantage over their competitors. So it's how to kind of turn a problem, into an opportunity. Be strategic about the apps that you move and with what resources. So a lot of what this session is about, right? You guys are doing this, hopefully I'm an expert. We've got lots of experts in the company. Get advice early. Get a secondary perspective. The problem a lot of companies have, right, is you've all got your day jobs, your staff are overworked as it is. Now you take on this migration. Now everybody's got a third job, right? And you're trying to support everything else. So if you can pull in a vendor like us, we can give you not only the guidance, but also that additional capacity to get you through migrations. And then, we can back up and go away, right? Or we can continue to help you, depending on what you want. So we can provide round-the-clock support. We've got a big operations center here with smart people in it who are monitoring systems all the time, responding to alerts, doing proactive stuff. So strategic service provider. This is an area that's pretty dull, right? Backup and DR, people ignore it or don't do it very well, and it's, until something goes wrong. We've actually picked up clients back in Sacramento when we were running, just as a smaller company, MSP. We got a couple of clients because they were hit with the crypto virus, and their existing company that was supporting them had not been doing regular backups. So we came in, and one of them they had to pay the ransom. There was absolutely no backups. The other one we were able to sort of pull together pretty much what they needed. But it's really it is still a big issue, and the cloud helps a lot in certain ways, but you've got to still put in the time and effort to make sure that you have backups and that you know what you do in the event of a disaster. If you don't have DR and you're primarily on-prem, cloud is a much better place to do DR. It's cheaper. You pay for it as you use it. So if you've got you don't have to go buy a whole bunch of. You don't have to buy a building, a data center, put a bunch of servers in it that are not going to be used. You can create a cloud environment, get it all ready, and then essentially turn it off. So depending on what you need, you can tailor certain types of response for high, business critical applications. You can put a lot more horsepower behind those. Others you can use backup recovery, source of different options that can be cost effective and quick. That's what this presentation really, or this slide really speaks to. Multi-site up there is really hot standby. You have almost instantaneous recovery, but you're going to have a cloud environment running all the time, right? So you split your workload across on-prem and cloud. One of the things there is if you've got an Oracle database underneath that, you're probably paying 2 licenses now because you've got one on-prem, one in the cloud. So they can be expensive even in the cloud. That's why Pilot Light is quite often a choice that a lot of our clients go with. You have a cloud environment set up, but you don't have it running the whole time, right? You've got database syncing, you've got a small version of the database out there that's ready to go. So that's why it's kind of called Pilot Light. And then when you need it, you fire it up. You've got automation scripts that fire that environment up pretty quickly. So you don't have to pay 2 licenses because in the event of a disaster, your on-prem's not running, cloud is, you only got 1 license. So, understand your dependencies on the front end. So that diagram there is pretty close to one of the ones we got from a client one time showing their applications. We run tools, as I was saying earlier, that if clients will let us, put them on their network, scan the network for 30 days, watch what's running, what's connected to each other, how they're connecting. We can spot database servers, we can see FTP transfers in and out, all those kinds of things, build these big dependency maps, then truly understand what applications are talking to each or what servers are talking to each other. So where there are hundreds or thousands of servers involved, that type of approach makes sense because it's just too much to do manually. If you've only got a handful of servers, we could do that manually. So, this really helps us understand the detail. It is, the truth of what you have, helps us then define security, what ports need to be open, because we will start with an environment that has nothing open, right? And then incrementally open things up that are needed. So if we can identify what's communicating on-prem. We've actually, as we've done this, we've found servers that basically have been hacked into that were run away. For a client, they were running 100%. Transferring files outside the organization. So we've actually come across things that have been pretty alarming. But more often than not, we just find that environments, we've got a development environment that's connected to a production environment. Everything's connected to everything because people over the years have had opened ports up that they've forgotten about. It's just a lot more complexity that really needs to be. So in the cloud, we create nice environments, control the security to those environments very tightly so that nobody can get into production who doesn't need to. So, this is an example of one of the diagrams we got from a client that was actually kind of helpful. What I tell our teams is we can't know too much about an environment and the applications prior to a migration. The more we can learn from the automated tools and just asking questions from smart people like admins so we can prepare the most detailed plan and understand it. That's better. So those are the summary of the rules. A couple of case studies here to get into now. How am I doing on time, Steve?
We're getting close.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I want to leave some time for questions.
Okay.
Certainly.
So I'll run through these pretty quickly then. We have done, for California's 58 counties, we've done a bunch of disaster recovery work for in Microsoft Azure, replicating their on-prem into the cloud using Azure Site Recovery. So we're rolling that out across 58 counties probably in California. So that's one example. Let's get through these. California Secretary of State is another client that we've done a lot of work with, migrated their website into AWS last year, right before the elections. They came to us about 30 days before our website is not secure, it's not performing well. The elections are coming up. Can you help us? So in 30 days, we kind of re-architect that thing, and they already had it they had an AWS account, and they was trying to start to do it, and they couldn't. They needed help. So we got them out into a much better place, used all kinds of technology in the cloud to get it to work both securely and performing well. Equally could have done this with Microsoft had that have been where they wanted to go. It wasn't that complex. They just didn't have the capability of doing it. And it made it through the elections with absolutely no issue. So this is a case where we did probably 2 or 3 weeks worth of work, and then we found the database was going to be a bottleneck. We just couldn't get performance out of it. So we migrated into Amazon's Aurora database. It's a cloud-native database, and that solved the problem. Again, I'd say there's nothing we couldn't have done there that we could have done in Microsoft. It's really just the getting it into the cloud. Here's a picture of that. It's showing you that there are servers split across different data centers, right? So we took this application that they actually had running in their building, and it was deployed across different data centers spread across the US, right? So put them in a totally different place. They liked our work so much there that they got us involved with one of the big business applications they have. They track all the corporations in California, and they have they pull in a bunch of money for that. That I personally have experience with. And they have these very complex rules. They re-architect that system. It's a custom Microsoft solution. We built out the infrastructure in Azure under that. We had a team of a number of people on that for a year plus building out this very complex Azure architecture that supports that application. So, and this is a picture of it. So it takes advantage of a lot of different cool services from Microsoft. So, the point here is, as a company, we figure out the right technology for you, right? Cloud, hybrid, on-prem, we've got all those capabilities. the right premises, sorry. We're, increasingly understanding how to have the right model for you. We're developing different managed services all the time that fit to your needs, right? So this is our 3 uniques that will help you realize your strategy. So we can contract with you in a number of ways, right? Depending on what you want. We can do a statement of work for a particular migration or project. We can do managed services for you, come in and support your existing environments, right? Take that on. We do what we Infinity call professional services plan, which is similar to my MSP, but we will provide you architectural support as well, because we like to get in and do proactive work with our clients so we can help them plan. And then we can do ad hoc. You can give us a bucket of hours and put us in as you need us. So lots of different ways we can help you.
Let's turn it over to Harsha and say the rest of the question.
Okay.
All right.
That's your slides. Okay. Just down arrows.
Hi, everyone. It's always hard to go after John. People get used to the accent.
What was that?
Okay, I'll go a lot faster. So I want to talk about machine learning and AI. Just go the landscape. What is the strategic value and use cases? We have few use cases, but depending on time, we can scale back on that. So before I get started, I want to ask the same question that Jonathan asked. In terms of your journey, where everyone is at with machine learning, AI, show of hands, how many are just starting to think about it? How many are already in the middle of doing it? Okay. Are already there, like you have your own team, data science. Okay. So it's
That was a different response from the first time we did it.
So
people change their minds.
That's pretty typical.
yeah, it's because I think it's just, cloud has been for a while.
Yeah.
So this is just where the market is and, all big numbers. The thing I'm excited about is, it's 60% of the organizations last year take this as their main data initiative. And I think that number is just going to keep growing. So what is machine learning predictive analytics? It's basically a services project that, delivers a solution. We follow a very repeatable, defined process that will go in detail in the next slide. Built in public cloud environments that's a preferable place to build, but we can do this solution on-prem too if needed. And using machine learning tools, we also leverage some of our pre-built solutions to deliver working software. That's kind of a very high-level view of what we do. Here is our the process that we follow for most predictive analytics projects. We always start with the problem definition. We like to, this is where we work with our customers a lot, understanding what is the problem that we want to solve, what is the key business problem they have, and we always start there. Then the next step is we go through the analyze phase where we identify the key business problems. Now we want to know what data you have, and we always think about this as a problem data fit. Do you have the right data to solve the problem? If not, then we talk about are there other places where we can get the data. If not, then we consult on what data needs to be collected to solve the problem. And the next two steps are where the more technical stuff. The first two steps we work closely with our customers, and then we can go and start doing it on our own. The data transformation, most machine learning projects, this is probably 80% of the work. We go through a detailed process of checking the data, validating we have all the data. Sometimes data is not always clean. We want to, this missing data is there. You're laughing. You've probably seen that. So this this is where we spend a lot of time on. And also one other thing we do is contextual enrichment of data. We can take your data and then augment it with data that's publicly available or through third-party data, and we merge all of that in this step. The learn phase is where the machine learning happens. It just we go through it in a couple of phases. We start with initial machine learning model development, where we are looking at a variety of models. Based on the problem, we typically have an idea on which models might work well for the problem. So we'll start there, and then we use then we do validate the models. Then we narrow it down to a couple of models that might work really well. The second final phase we do is where we tune the models to get the best performance we can get in production. Now we are ready to deploy the model. A couple of deployment options one is where the model is just predicting. For example, if you have a use case scenario, as I'll talk later on, you want to predict fraud or not fraud. And once the model is deployed through APIs, you can call the model with a certain preset parameters. It will quickly return an answer. Is it okay? This is fraud. This one is not fraud. Or any number of use cases in detecting cancer. Okay, this was cancer, not cancer, whatnot. But that is good. But also we live in a world where every day our customers are getting more and more data, and you do not want your models to be static. So we also deploy what we call an adaptable continuous learning model, where every day or certain preset cadence will automatically train the model with the latest data that you have, and then the model becomes smarter over time. It's all set up in a way that there's not too many manual intervention needed. So as you keep getting more data, the model learns and gets better. And the final step is where once we go through this process, we have a much better understanding of our customers' data, environment, infrastructure. Then we are able to advise and consult on other areas where machine learning can help. Strategic value of data, we have. This is one of the reasons why 60+% organizations are focusing on this, right? The value is on multiple areas, all from profits, improving profits, to delivering a true competitive advantage and increasing sales. And the competitive advantage is an important piece, I think, because it's going increasingly becoming where, another few years from now, not deploying, not leveraging your data, getting the insights from there might put everyone at a competitive disadvantage. While if starting to do it now, probably is a good place to be. So what are some of the common pain points that would necessitate someone to start thinking about advanced analytics? The first one is increasing amount of data. I look at it as more opportunity than a pain point, and every business getting more and more data.
The amount of online data is doubling every 18 months.
Something like that, yes.
It's crazy.
Like in the next 2 years, we are going to collect more data than we have ever done in history or something like that. So just more and more data. Faster decision making. I would also say more proactive decision making. Leveraging the strength and the power of your data. That is, we say data is becoming the oil of the 21st century, and the more we can leverage, the more actionable insights you can get. It becomes this positive feedback loop where it then informs your business so you can make better decisions.
I don't know, with climate control, that may not be a good analogy.
Disparate data consolidation. As John was pointing out, there are a lot of businesses where there are silos of data, and there are different data sources, or each probably done for certain purpose. But now the power comes in when you're able to take all the data sources within your organization, various teams and everything, and merging all of them. Now you can get truly unique insights that help And obviously, we live in a world that's constantly changing. Another pain point could be, current error rates with current statistical models or what systems you have might be higher. And that's another area with machine learning, you can probably get those down too. So use cases. So Steve, how are we doing in time?
You're in time.
All right.
I think this will help tell the story. Before we go real quick, I mean, you did a really good job early on. I didn't have a very good understanding of the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence. Can you maybe just hit on that real quick? There's a difference.
Yes. Good point. So artificial intelligence is the buzzword. Everybody is using it. So foundation of artificial intelligence is machine learning. And machine learning is where we're able to take historical data and then train some mathematical models on that so it can make future predictions. And the predictions range a wide variety of predictions. You can make predictions on discrete stuff like fraud or not fraud, or even continuous variables like, what is your home price, for example. Most applications are machine learning. Most industrial applications today, if you look at it, are machine learning. Artificial intelligence is defined as the real definition of artificial intelligence is where we the holy grail is really trying to get to human level intelligence, but it's like ways out. People always think of scary scenarios when we talk about that.
Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator. That's what everyone goes, or machine going to take over. No. Machines are good at doing certain simple tasks that we focus them on. And within AI, there's a subfield called deep learning, which is using neural networks like your self-driving car would be the biggest example of, I would say, AI in use today. But Steve, for most practical purposes, there's a lot of, when people use the terms machine learning and AI, they're using it a lot interchangeably.
So yeah, if I could say something. Machine learning is, I spent my career figuring out how to build software, build logic, right? How to develop algorithms. I even built a fraud prevention system for tax department. Spent years trying to perfect that. And every time we rolled it out, fraud changed, right? So we'd be back trying to put rules in and code it, still miss it. With machine learning, you've got these existing algorithms, these models, that you run data through them, right, and show them that, okay, this was fraud, this was not fraud. They learn, right? So you no longer need somebody like me writing code or developing algorithms. You're just training these pre-built algorithms. That's why it works so quickly. And if you can get them a good enough training data, they can then, as new, tax returns come through, they can, that one's fraudulent, with high accuracy. And so but you don't need people like me, software developers anymore. You need data scientists like Harsha, these big mathematical brains, to tune these models. If you have that with the software and the huge computing power that you need to run these things, because you're pumping enormous amounts of data through it to train them, you can now really take advantage of it. So your question is good, Steve. I mean, machine learning is a sort of a subset of artificial intelligence that business can take advantage of. Right? I think it's sort of one of the first areas that really makes it viable for organizations to use. I've seen it in hospital systems where they take the data, they've got a lot of data on existing people, right? When somebody comes in to be admitted, they can tell the percentage of likelihood, how likely that person is going to be readmitted within 2 weeks. And if it's high likelihood, they give them much more attention because we don't want them back in. We're an HMO, that's going to cost us money, right? So now they suddenly go, let's pay attention. And that's just machine learning, right? In our college systems, we look at all the data for the students that have been successful, got through the college system in 4 years, which is in California not very often these days, and gotten a job. And then we try and match those up with people that are coming in, and then advise them a guided pathway based upon what we've seen that was successful. The machine learning model can tell them, okay, you should take these classes because it's seeing that people that took those classes who were like you in demographics are successful. Right? So it's just by having tons of data pumping it through these models with people like Harsha who can tune them and figure out the right models. You can do things very quickly that you could really never do before.
Yeah,
So it's a very cool area.
I think it's important to understand that because, the next time your CEO board member comes and talks about AI, it's good to understand that not as much AI is out there as what we think the practical uses for it are not non-existent, but probably not relevant for most of the businesses that we are involved in. So that was very eye-opening to me. Yeah. The difference between that, because I thought there's more AI than ML, but actually there's more ML than there is AI by a long shot.
But it's more readily applicable to just regular businesses and scenarios.
There's vast more trust about AI because, it's.
So to your point, Steve, I think the struggle for me, is there are so many options for AI and ML. It's so saturated. I'm like, do I have to have all these different systems for my company to figure out what's happening within the data for my organization? Like, for example, I'm a mentor for a group here called 630, and they come through with startups with AI and ML, just churn through them like, I don't know which one is better than the other one. So it's really difficult to figure out which one I should be asked.
This is, as an industry, this is one of the problems we had a podcast, InterVision podcast with Jeff Tan. The topic was AI washing is what he called, because there is so much. Everybody says they use AI.
There's so much
I
hype.
had
Tons of hype,
my standing from desk say, we bought one. It said it had AI. I'm like, oh, I've been having AI.
Good day.
And I think what we've seen, at least on our side, is that following some form of a process, right? Key decision methodology is what problem are you really trying to fix? Because previous life, we used to call it the Super Bowl commercials, right? After the Super Bowl, all of the board members and the CEO and CIO had watched something, or they flew on a plane, and we want like blank seats on airplanes now, because every flyer generates 6 months worth of go get me one of those. But it's what problem you're trying to solve with machine learning for us was the foundational investment, right? How do I gain 2 more lines of picking in a warehouse, right? How do I gain 1 or 2% of accuracy in pricing against the last 10 years of trending, right? That's a machine learning efficiency, right? That gets added to that. AI is not going to make your salesman better, right? It just won't. But if they can sell with better data, or if they can understand from all of the supply and demand part of it, that's the key part of what problem you're trying to solve today, right? Because the self-driving truck eventually is going to help the big fleets, right? And picking with drones is eventually going to help all of those. But as a network and a security guy, if you put a drone in one of my warehouses, I'm just going to go get a shotgun and shoot it, right? I mean, you're not putting it in there first, because it's not going to solve any of the problems that you've got. All it does is just mask it. Yeah. So that was one of the things that we had from the buzzword bingo piece of it was, I want a zero trust AI solution for security in the enterprise. And I'm like, so let's kind of pull that all apart, because all of those are their own little pieces. It's for us, that was the biggest thing. What are you trying to solve, and then what piece of ML helps me first? And that's been huge for us, is helping the business understand it and then come back and then just make it better.
Right on. That's exactly. That's why, if you look at our process we follow, it's always defining the problem. There's a specific problem that we need to be solving, and then we go through methodically, And InterVision, our focus is on building custom AI engines and deploying those solutions, and that's where our focus is. And through that process, if we are talking, we could, help also advise you on if you're looking at some solution. We can give our 2 cents on if that is through AI or not.
Well, I mean, you've got a lot of experience across a number of industries and seen where machine learning has worked quite well, right? And it's dependent on you've got to have the data, right? And then you have to spend, I don't know if you've got the slide in here of the process, but our process.
Yeah, I already showed you.
Okay. I wasn't there. I was on my AI phone. Yeah, I mean, having that process is important. We look at the data, we spend a lot of time, quite often, looking at the data, trying to figure out how best to use the different features, attributes in the data to your problem. But, it's so vastly overhyped, this area. Technology is crazy. And it's really hurt us, I think, just trying to roll out this area where we know there's value. You're talking about it. It's not that hard to do. And, you know, a lot of organizations could get benefit from it. A lot of people are just sort of, you know, sort of can't handle all the buzzword stuff.
The organizational change management side of that, because when you talk about machine learning and AI, most people would equate that to, I'll lose my job. So the resistance to even talking about it or sharing the data that feeds accurate data.
Yes.
That's the other part of it, is that, can you give us the data for the last 6 months? We give you 6 months of 2015. Right, so I mean, and it's not a malicious thing, there's a level of protection that's there. So that's some of the things that we find out is organizational change management has to be part of the conversation when we talk about this, when we talk about security, when you talk about cloud migration, because everybody looks at it saying, well, now I'm going to be unemployed, thanks, right? So your cloud strategy just put me on the street here.
Exactly. That's another one, right?
Absolutely.
The fear with, this machine learning, because people talk about AI and automation, I always go back to a simple example that I always tell during this conversation is, when Excel came, how many people before Excel was there? That's a very simple example, spreadsheets, right? But doing manual accounting, just the amount of job, manual work that was there, that Excel solved. Excel didn't put people out of work, that's a similar example, but now I just take it into machine learning. That's machine learning is going to do is
Being more efficient.
being more efficient and will help you do more higher value add tasks, stuff like that. And, but that's a very important thing to consider when you're thinking about it, because that is the fear in the back of it.
OCM has to be part of it.
So this example, this use case that John just talked about briefly when he was explaining rules-based solutions, and California Community Colleges fund together the largest system in the US with 113 colleges, 2 million students. They're getting a lot of applications, and what they found was there was a lot of fraudulent applications coming in, and some of the motives looks like the main thing is getting that EDU email address gives you a lot of free, Office 365 is free, and there's a lot of software you get free, and also even more malicious with fraud, tax fraud.
They were going and grabbing social security numbers off the dark web, combining with .edu address. A lot of this was coming out of Russia.
And there's YouTube videos on how to get this email address step by step to do it too. So and with fraud, what happens is, like John was saying, you can put rules to block fraud, but the bad actors will always get around the rules, and it's a constant chasing this, and the amount of time and money you have to spend is so much. With machine learning, as I was talking about, when you deploy an adaptable solution,
Well,
it
that's
learns
how
quickly.
we discovered this, because we were working with this client, and they were coming to us and asking us to do a blacklist an IPs, and it was making the Russia version of an app now because there's some logic changes in it. Well, what are you trying to do? What's going on? And they didn't really want to initially let us know that there was this amount of fraud going on, because it wasn't great for their reputation. But once they sort of started to talk about it, we got harsher involved and developed this solution. It's been very successful.
Yeah, so it's been deployed for a year.
One example of how machine learning has helped.
So just won't take a lot of time here. Just want to show a high-level solution overview, because this is very similar to most solutions we deploy. And the left side on the application is where the college application is.
You're supposed to hide that part. This is AWS.
I know.
It could be built on Microsoft.
Like John was talking earlier, we are comfortable building it in Azure or AWS. This happened, the customer was already in AWS, and we had to do that. So what happens is, anything on green is where the machine learning is happening. Every day, we take the data from the databases, and we go through our data extraction transformation phase, and then we build our machine learning models, and then we pass it on to our prediction service, which is now ready to give results through the REST API. So every time a student submits an application, it hits our API, and within less than 500 milliseconds, we return is it a fraud or not fraud. If it is fraud, this is what we call a human-in-the-loop feedback process that we have implemented. That's what the customer wanted. So, the colleges themselves, because there are 115 colleges, they needed to have some control over, which
Well,
which
Yeah, and California is under this mandate that, no student should be, rejected or for the community college level. So it would be a really bad thing for them to reject somebody who's a valid student. So they put a lot of work there. I mean, to me, this is the top part of that data extraction machine learning model. That's kind of the R&D side of it. That's the training the model, running, lots of data through the model initially. And then it spits out this prediction service, which is actually, code that just is now wired into the application. So every time a student applies, it calls that prediction service and gets back an answer, either yes, this is probably fraud, or no, and can stop it, right, suspend it. So, and then that record is then tagged, and then the model reruns every night and retrains. So as behavior changes, the model keeps up with it because it's in this constant sort of retrain process. But the bit at the top there, data extraction machine learning, we use automation to create the environment, right? Run the model, it takes about 30 minutes. We use very, very large instance sizes of the servers so that we can get the model to run quickly. And we shut that whole environment down. So we've used a combination of DevOps, automation, infrastructure as code, along with the machine learning model and stuff, to create a solution that is very cost effective, because we're creating essentially like a supercomputer for the model to run the model, get the new service, shut that environment down. So, it's why the cloud makes this effective, because the customer doesn't get this huge bill for doing this, but they get the benefits of huge computing power.
Yep. And the way that's set up is it can take the data, it can adapt itself on whatever cadence the customer wants it. So currently we set it in a weekly cadence where all the latest data goes, the model learns and updates itself, and then updates the prediction service. So every week it's learning the latest data. And like I said, this is a very similar. The main pieces will stay the same for most solutions, but obviously with the problem we'll have to do certain things differently. This is another use case where we have a pre-built framework to analyze what we call voice of customer. Like, this could be Amazon reviews or Twitter feedback or your own if you have market research surveys. And the focus here is understanding the actual comments people make. So using natural language processing and machine learning, we are able to extract valuable information from what people are saying. So if you look at the data ingest layer, we have built something where we can ingest data from multiple different data sources. Our core machine learning libraries focus on analyzing the sentiment, people happy about your product, not happy about your product. Attribute analyzer, what we do is we can break that sentiment into multiple layers, like what are people saying about your price, or what people saying about your customer service, these kind of or whatever attribute is specific to your business. And it's great to know the sentiment, but also it would be nice to know when somebody says I like your product and another review is I love your product. Obviously there are different level of excitement, so you want to understand that. And also we look at all these comments and feedbacks from customers, and we divide it into thematic clusters into key segments of what are the key areas of concern. Like we did this one for our customers with the pet food, and one of the themes was people are concerned that the cans were dented, the pet food cans keep getting dented. So that kind of information. Or another one was on the positive side, there was very positive feedback on price. So we're able to break all these thousands of comments into key themes that is easy to understand from a business standpoint. And customization, as we said, we deliver custom solutions, so we can customize the core framework based on the industry and specific needs. Like, for example, if they're a contact center, there might be more information specific to they're getting feedback on the phone calls. What kind of information are they getting on the contact center? And if there is some We can take speech to text translation software, then put all that information in text and then apply this as an example. And there are some results and some stuff we have done there. So this is the last one. Here was a semiconductor manufacturer, and basically they had multiple different markets, and they wanted to understand their customers coming to their website. They wanted to know which segment they belong to. This helps them with better targeted marketing, and they had about 30% of the customers self-identify their market. They had some information when you go to their website, they'll ask which market you're interested in. Using that information as training, and also we know which web pages people visit when somebody comes to their website, which pages, which white papers they download, those kind of information. We used all of that then to be able to identify for every new visitor to the website, based on the website history, website actions they do there, we are able to identify which target market they belong to. Like we'll be working with our customer, we always identify every customer coming in, this is the top 2 markets they probably belong to. They were able to use that, and their target email open rates were increased by 20% because of that. And we're able to, identify 200% more people than previously they had known. Okay, I think that's the last slide.
So we talked about a lot.
Yes.
We talked about our data. We talked about where it lives, where it can live, how do we get it there. Harsha spent some time talking about, we all collect our data. Some of us are starting to interpret our data, but how do we translate it back to the business and something that's meaningful and impactful is probably a task for most of us in this room. The good news is we weren't trying to solve anything necessarily today for individuals, but we did want to inform you guys. I want to give you a better talk track, a better understanding. So, we've got, the good news is we've got John and Harsha here all day. For those of you that can't stay all day, that's okay. I wanted Harsha to get out here a day early. He did, and we didn't get to take advantage of as much of his time. I think some of that's still new to the sales teams here, my team here in St. Louis, to get them to articulate the value proposition of what Harsha and his team can do. Hopefully now you guys have a little bit better understanding of that. So we're going to be bringing them back out, but then we're also going to have breakout sessions. I've hijacked the entire office for the day. So to some of the frustration of my peers, all of the conference rooms and the break rooms are ours for the day. So if you guys want to just have like a one-on-one session and you want to pull these guys aside, certainly feel free to. We've got some snacks and stuff outside before the next sessions begin. I ask you guys please to finish the surveys as we're going here, and then get those turned in. Nikki will collect those and we'll give you guys a ticket, and then that'll be for a raffle here shortly. And then let's go with some questions. I know a few of you guys asked questions. Bob started off, and I know that Pete and Jason have asked some questions, so you pick what you want, but start with questions.
And I don't know who to address this to, but we recently outsourced all of our systems to InterVision, but we also have our e-commerce system on AWS. We have a bunch of stuff on Azure now, and I'm looking at the makeup of my IT staff. I mean, in the old days, you had your network architects, you had your database designers, you had people who could spin up new servers, all that kind of stuff. In a cloud environment, what's the core competency of my IT staff? I mean, is it just vendor management? Or do I still need to have a systems architect? Do I still need to have a database architect? Do I still need to have all of those things? Or do I rely on the vendor to do all those things?
Yeah. Great question. And the answer is it depends. I mean, for you as an organization, long term, how much do you want to control and do yourself? Well, versus
As little as possible.
as little as possible. Then, it's sensitive, obviously, because I don't want to, say you can give up those positions and people's jobs and all that. But if that answer is, we as an organization could have taken on support of what you were doing on premises as much as we can.
Yeah.
The cloud is easier for us to do, right? Because we're managing an environment that's not in your data center. But we should really sit down and talk more.
Okay.
To understand, kind of where you're trying to go, what your, how unique your applications are. How much
They're not. And we're a very small company, 135 people.
Okay.
If I could get rid of almost all IT functions, we're talking now about help desk. you know,
Oh, absolutely you can.
it's not a core competency. It's not what we do.
It's, yeah, no, then, we've got all of those skill sets. There's some, there's some change management that you need, you've got to account for to really get everybody comfortable with that, because there's a very personal sort of aspect to that. I mean, you were mentioning organizational change management. You do not want to under sort of value that. So, but we can help you with all of those things. We've got people who are actually trained and experts in OCM. We do a lot of that work for the government. The private sector quite often sort of ignores it. Government overdoes it. The actual sort of right play is to sort of understand it and do the right amount of it. Just understanding the change that this is going to inflict on your organization, the strategy and getting everybody on board with it, right? But no, we can do all those things. And do them well. And, you can tell from everything I said, we are keeping up with the market, right? We will come back to clients. The reason we've been successful at keeping the big clients we have is we are proactively out ahead of where they're at. We are eliminating debt or technical debt. We're doing things proactively. We're not just reacting or waiting to be asked to do stuff. We're understanding the point I made earlier, what your company is, where you're going, what competition you are, where are the pain points for you as a business, and then how can we be your technical support to that.
Yeah, because I can see a shift in staffing. It's going away from corporate America to being service providers.
The diagram I showed there showed IT as a service, which Jonathan found in some research with it. I think is truly where it's going. Right? So you guys will not need to worry about servers and this and that. You'll be trying to focus on how do we apply machine learning, like you've done,
which we are.
Yeah, right. How do we apply that to our business? What data what are we trying to do? What are our competitors trying to do? How would that help us? You start to focus on those things.
In our experience, if you're a small shop, and we're a small shop, when you have your senior engineer also handling basic troubleshooting and on-call, right? When you start to take some of the noise and keep the lights on part of it, and InterVision's a great partner to do that, then the value that senior engineer or that architect brings, even if it's in the same technology, starts to leapfrog what they were doing when they were tied up in troubleshooting and fault isolation. So that's the way we're looking at it is, to be honest, I don't have a headcount gain funding anything I'm doing because I've got 9 people that do 4 services across the enterprise. I can't do it with 6. I can't do it with 4. I'm not going to try to, clone 5 people or any of the rest of it. I've got great people. I need to have a partner that can keep the lights on for me so that I can start to move the needle with the people that have been there building it. And that's the strategy we're using.
But if you lose
Absolutely. Yeah, if it's low value, don't do it. Find somebody else to do it.
Now you've asked the career development path too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the senior engineer who's resetting passwords is a pissed off senior engineer.
They want to move up in their career, so
Same thing 100 times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because
Probably got time for 1, maybe 2 more questions. How about anybody else?
I think with the customer voice model that you showed, how do you get around privacy issues or concerns, or do you have any?
You'd be amazed how effective that is without using any identifying information.
Yeah.
I was stunned first time these guys ran some models against freeform. And they started to come up with these word patterns that this application had enabled the client to find and fix certain web pages that were pissing off clients, basically. And so, no identifying information, nothing.
It's just pretty much, create the public information that's already in say, Amazon or Twitter, or you don't want to research surveys or any kind of information. You get feedback from customers which is anonymized. You don't need to know this particular customer said this. We could do that. And the most important thing is the information you get is a summary of this is the overall sentiment score you got from all your customers, or this is the key themes all your customers are saying, and it never tracks back to this specific customer is saying this about you. So that
It's what I was saying earlier, we don't want that data. We'll just pull the non-identified data into the model. You later, for yourself, decide, okay, we're going to dig deeper and find out more, but what this does, you don't need it.
I have a question. You guys, InterVision's moving to ServiceNow. How are you integrating with all the tickets coming in? Is it a project to integrate the learning from that in order to service the people within that ticketing, or how to automate some of these regular requests coming in, or duplicate tickets, and how to service the customers better?
That's coming. We're just getting to the point where we've got ServiceNow up and running, and our team, there was a collective sigh of relief that project's done, right?
This weekend.
ServiceNow is a massive beast.
Yeah.
You can do so much with it.
Absolutely.
That we had to be sort of pretty focused as an organization on we're going to get this part done and working well, get that sort of proof. But no, I mean, we've got Asha and the team just sort of chomping at the bit to get at the data that not only from ServiceNow, but we got lots of other data as an organization.
Well, and the reason I ask is because even as, we're going to eventually look at it as a company, but as a selling point, that would be a great example of saying that is a huge, if I was InterVision, I said, let's implement this because this is something we can sell. We're doing it in-house. And because there's so many other big companies that implement in ServiceNow, and there's a lot of value. You can say, hey, we can help you do the same thing.
I raised that about 6 months ago, and people sort of threw darts at me because they were in the middle of getting ServiceNow integrated. And they were, we could sell this to all our clients. And I got some. But with support from our clients asking for it,
I promise you that even though I'm about to hand him a card, once I did not bribe him to say that. Harsh and I just talked about this lunch yesterday, and we talked about it, about 4 or 5 months ago in San Jose, the first time I met Harsha. I mean, it's an obvious point, right? It's I don't think we say eat our own dog food anymore. I think we say drink our own champagne. This is drinking our own.
I do it selfishly because I know long-term we want to put ServiceNow. So I'm like, that could be another thing down the road saying, hey, BW leadership, if we do this, InterVision's also added this, and they can help us make
I'll be
it even
following up
better.
with you. You're voice of our customer because, that's absolutely.
Aaron loves Andrew, so that's a big, powerful one. He loves everybody.
We're already a ServiceNow shop, and talking to Mike and Antonio, that was one of the challenges we had because it came out of a swivel chair environment, which I don't recommend that if anybody ever pitches that to you.
What's that?
Swivel chair, where you have your own ticketing system and another one, and there's a person in the middle that translates all of those.
Yep.
Yeah, don't ever do that. But so our side of it is we kind of tried to eat the elephant with ServiceNow about 3 years ago and implement like 5 modules, and that didn't work. And so they kind of narrowed it down. We did incident, we did change, we're getting ready to do config. And so when you guys decided to go to it, that was a big selling point for us on that side of it. So
yeah, we're going to be using it a lot more. I mean, I'm in charge of product engineering.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out how we can buy it up front, bite-sized chunks that we as an organization can implement and be good at. But I am very much someone who learn this hard way. Limit the number of tools you have and get really, really good with it as an organization. So we will become just absolute ServiceNow experts. We will integrate a lot of other things into it, right? Because it's the hub for us, and including obviously machine learning and AI, right? Because that's something what we've got tons of data, right? We're just chomping them. You're right, Steve. We were talking about this about 6 months ago.
Well, and as you're talking about all these,